Good evening, San Benito CISD staff and community. It is now 5:37, and we will get started with the administrative committee meeting. It will now come to order. We do not have public comments today, so we will be moving on to the agenda items. And I will call the chairwoman for the administrative committee meeting.
Good afternoon, board. Dr. Carmen. Agenda item 2.1 is a review and discussion of revisions to the 2020-2021 compensation plan. We are asking for consideration of changes, revisions to our compensation plan to align with the Project Rise updates. We are part of the Project Rise grant. Our Miller Jordan Middle School participates in that grant. Project Rise has a committee meeting, which I am a part of. We met to see how they would distribute funds that were left to be distributed. And this is what the committee voted on: virtual enhancement incentive stipend, an instructional technology for educators academy, and observation calibration incentive stipend. Those have been added to our compensation plan on page 16. This is an agenda item.
Are there any questions from board members? Are they okay with this as an agenda item as is? Agenda item.
No, agenda
Okay.
item.
Agenda item. Agenda item.
Okay, Ms. Lopez, you need to read the 2.2, read what it says there, review.
Okay, so we'll place 2.1 on the agenda for
Mhm.
the next regular
Yes.
board meeting on December 8th
Yes.
as an agenda item.
Yes.
Okay, all right, we'll go on to the next one. 2.2, review and discussion of 2020-21 stipends. Are there any questions for this agenda item? Okay, Dr. Cruz?
Yes, this is a list of our 2020-2021 stipends, just so that the board has and the public has an understanding of our stipends. These stipends are not a part of our teachers' base pay. They're in addition to. Every year they go up to the board for approval and throughout the year for any changes or revisions. These are listed in categories: academic stipends, athletic stipends. The lists are submitted every year by the principals and directors to the HR department. We utilize those lists
Give me water, Mama.
to establish payment of those stipends through our payroll. If our employees should have any questions whether they should be on the stipend list, they are to start at their supervisor. And we are also happy to assist them with determining whether they should be on a particular list if they feel that they weren't that. Are there any questions, board?
I have a question. What I'd like to know is, from last year to this year, what was the changes? Were there any increases, or did we add anybody else that got stipends from the last year before?
So we have had changes from the actual list from last year. We will bring revisions to the board as they happen. We try to get all of the changes at the end of the year that our directors and principals are proposing, and we get them board approved. But as you can see, we still bring revisions to the board. I can identify a few that have changed. We have, for example, on page 12, our dance and cheer stipends, the amounts were not changed, but they were reallocated, grouped together, and just spent a little differently given to our different sponsors. That was one change that we we made from last year. We also adjusted on page 15, our Texas Safe School Required Training Stipend. We are now calling it appropriately the mid-year required training stipend, which by the way, will get paid out in December for all employees that completed their required training for the year. We've also made changes to the athletic stipends as proposed by the athletic director and approved by the SLT committee. So it goes through various levels of approval before it comes to the board.
Was there much of a difference on the increase? Let's just say the athletic, was there much of an increase?
Not by much, Ms. Yanis, and as you know, our athletic personnel, they work very hard with our students. Our students are very passionate about sports and music and cheer and, you know, all of those extracurricular activities. Sure. So any proposals that were made to increase, I guarantee they've earned every penny of that stipend and beyond. They work very hard for our students in our community.
I'm sure they do. Are we talking 500, 1,000?
I can get those amounts, Ms. Yanis, from last year. That way I'm providing you with accurate information and not just from memory.
Okay.
I'll be happy to do so.
Yeah, I just want to see what the difference was from last year to this year. Of course, we've been under undue circumstances right now, and so I'm sure that they've earned every little thing that they get. But I just wanted to see what the difference was. That's all. Just
I think
make
that
an observation.
Yeah, and since there's the funds, they have the funds, so they have every right to use the funds according to how they're
Sure.
needing. So those funds need to be used. If not, they get lost. We lose them for next year or whatever. So, you know, of course, they're not gonna be paying over what people, you know, then we're not supposed to. So with, you know, the way
Sure.
they do their work and everything, their performance, that's how they're paid and very well earned. Thank
So
you.
it's not carried over, is what we're saying.
So they have to meet the requirements for the different stipends. So it's not just a guarantee that they're given. It's not a guarantee that these stipends are in place every year. It's on top of their base pay, as mentioned. It's not a guarantee for any of us. But those stipend lists are provided every year by the principals and directors. With the assistance of HR, we also provide that information back to them for review.
Okay, so it's not carried over monies, is what we're saying.
Oh, no, ma'am. I mean,
Okay.
it's budgeted for every year.
Okay.
And our staff works very hard and they're very well reserved, this is very well deserved for our staff. And I thank everybody that's working in the district. And one of the main priorities for myself was to make sure that we retain employees. There's a lot of great experience out there. We got a lot of newcomers, a lot of people that have a lot of experience, and everybody is important. Everybody makes a difference for our kids because, you know, everybody has different ideas, everybody has different skills, different abilities. So we want to keep as many as we can in our district and retain them. And I think that providing stipends to them is one of the best things that we can do. And I also have a question on the hourly employees here. Have they received any stipends? Because to me, it looks, by reading this, and you can correct me, Dr. Cruz, it looks like they have an hourly rate. However, I'm not seeing if there was a stipend.
So typically stipends are for the professional staff that are doing duty, you know, that have duties above and beyond. We do have some amounts for hourly rates, for example, for summer schools, just so that the communication is there across our community, that everyone's aware of how much they're going to get paid. So it's not necessarily stipends, but as far as summer school and extra duty pay, they are for hourly rate employees. Did I answer your question, Ms. Lopez?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Dr. Cruz.
Yes, ma'am.
I do have another question there on the social work and the student mentors. Can you explain to me what that's about?
What page is that, Ms. Yanis? I'm sorry.
It's
Ms.
actually, it's on page 15.
Oh, okay. social work, student mentor. So we have various groups that want to do some training here in the district. Social workers are one of those groups. They're very, hard to come by sometimes. And so we have the opportunity to allow them to, participate in training here in the district. We have the mentors that are with a bachelor's degree and a master's degree. They get paid that amount. I believe that Ms. Alvarado is going to be discussing some additional information on social work. Is that correct, Ms. Alvarado? In another agenda item.
That's correct, Dr. Cruz.
Okay. And if I can also get some more information on the SPED evaluations.
Yes, so our special ed department worked very hard to identify students that need special services. We have personnel that they evaluate the students to determine what support they need. And so these evaluations, we sometimes have additional work to do. There's a lot of work, sometimes not enough hours in the day to do so. These are amounts that get paid an hourly rate to those individuals that are providing those evaluations so that we can support our students as needed.
And so is this on top of their hourly rate?
This is additional work beyond their contracts if they're employed with us. Mhm.
Thank you very much. As well, our special ed department is very important to our students. So whatever we can do for our students, that's great. And as well as mental health, we got to take care of the whole child.
Absolutely. Thank you for your generosity, board. We appreciate the support for our teachers and the hard work that they put in, teachers and all staff.
Very well deserved. Thank you.
Yes.
That's an agenda item.
Agenda item.
I don't believe that's an agenda item. I believe that was just for discussion.
Okay, great.
A review and discussion.
Yes. It was just for discussion, review and discussion. Any other questions before we move on? Okay. So let's move on to 2.3, review and discussion of San Benito CISD implementation guidelines for Texas K through 12 school system COVID-19 rapid testing.
Thank you. I have with me Jeanette Rodriguez, our health services coordinator, and I want to, before we even get into the topic of the review and discussion of San Benito CISD implementation guidelines for the COVID rapid testing, I want to commend the hard work of our coordinator and all of our nurses. They are at the front lines, and we sincerely appreciate their efforts and helping us remain healthy and safe. Thank you so much, Jeanette.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Cruz.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So the state has allowed us as school districts to participate in COVID testing. We have taken up this opportunity and have applied to be a COVID testing site. Our neighbors, Harlingen CISD, was part of that pilot program, and we're happy now to join forces with the rest of the districts offering COVID testing. So with it comes, some training, et cetera, and Jeanette is going to fill us in. Ms. Rodriguez is going to fill us in. Excuse me, Jeanette.
Good evening, Dr. Carmen. Good evening, board members.
Good evening.
We are going to go over, I believe all of you have available to you the PowerPoint presentation regarding the COVID testing. And like Dr. Cruz said, this opportunity was given to us by Governor Abbott and the Texas Department of Emergency Management. So we will go over some basic information just regarding the program itself. We do intend to roll out this program in phases if it is approved by the board, and we do have a timeline that we can discuss with you as well. So for our first phase, and a little bit, let me backtrack a little bit about the testing. It is free to our students. It is free to our staff. This type of testing is called an antigen test. and the results are available in 15 minutes. It is a simple nasal swab to the point where staff can even perform their own testing under the supervision of a test administrator. And once the program is completely rolled out, all 4 phases have been rolled out, then the test would be available to all staff and students if they meet the criteria. So we are going to go over the first, we'll discuss each phase, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those. The first phase that we would like to roll out is the COVID testing for our symptomatic staff members only. So if we have a staff member that is on campus and starts to experience any symptoms that are consistent with COVID-19, then they would be eligible to have that test done at the campus. So our second, and the timeline for that, let me give you, would be starting on December 9th through December 18th. So that would be when we plan to implement phase 1. So for our phase 2 plan would be from January 5th to January 8th. And what our plan for that would be to continue with our phase 1 staff that are already being allowed to be tested. So that would be any staff member that is symptomatic, plus any staff member who has been deemed as a close contact due to potential exposure at the school. Okay, so moving on to our phase 3 would be for symptomatic students. And of course, anyone who is under the age of 18 would require parental consent. And the Texas Department of Emergency Management has already provided us with a uniform consent form for all districts that are participating. So for our phase 3, that would be, we would plan to roll that out January 11th through January 15th. And of course, once we begin phase 3, we would also continue with the staff we are already testing in phase 1 and in phase 2. Our last phase would be for any students who have been deemed as a close contact due to potential school exposure. And so we would do that one from January 19th through January 22nd. So while we're saying we're implementing the phases, we're continuing with the previous phases as well. So by January 19th, we would be doing all 4 phases of the program that we have created. So let me go back. And this just goes through, it is in alignment as far as the results. It is in alignment with our return to school plan. But we do think it would be a good opportunity for our district to help identify students and staff that either are symptomatic and at school or have potentially been exposed to someone that has tested positive for COVID. Okay. The training is fairly simple. It consists of 2 videos, and it's about a total, both videos combined are about 45 minutes. And then there is an assessment that has to be done after that. And it is a 15-question assessment that you have to score an 80 or above in order to be certified. And then you will be, the Texas Department of Emergency Management will list you as a certified test administrator for this particular COVID test. Okay, does anyone have any questions about the program or any of the requirements or anything like that?
I don't have a question, but I do want to comment. I think it's a great opportunity. It's a phenomenal opportunity, and it's going to provide opportunities to make sure our students, staff, and teachers are safe at all times. The question that I want to ask, as far as the testing that you're going to require, the people that are going to administer these tests, have you, or do you know of any? Is it going to be a requirement from certain individuals, and has there been any reluctance?
We, at this time, it is completely optional. So
Okay.
we are not requiring, even if someone is having symptoms and they decide to opt out of that, then at that point, we would follow what our return to school plan says. And then if the student or staff member is symptomatic, then they would have to go home and then follow the steps listed in our plan.
Let me rephrase the question. Thank you for that answer. You answered that very well, but I guess my question wasn't clear enough. As far as the individuals administering the swab test,
Okay.
have there been any? We've got some people out there in our public and our schools that are just terrified of COVID. So my question is, nurses, employees, or what has a percentage, or not as a percentage, but has there been any reluctance issues as far as wanting to participate in with that program?
That is a very good question, Mr. Moreno. And there have, I did discuss this with our nurses prior to our Thanksgiving break. And
Okay.
As with any change, I think there is some fear of change, but I think with a proper training that it would become pretty much second nature in the fact of anything that we do in the school setting.
Good.
And
Okay, thank you.
Just one more thing. We rolled out our virtual health care for kids program last spring. So we had been discussing this since last year. And, we held a meeting with all of our nurses, got their buy-in. Yes, they
Good.
were a little concerned,
Hesitant.
but by the end of our meeting, they were ready to go and really looking forward to playing a large part in the healthcare of our students. So like Jeanette said, there is a little fear involved with everyone, but
Normal.
they are surely professionals and conduct themselves as such. So they'll be
And
prepared.
one thing I forgot
Dr.
to-
Cruz.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. I just said thank you, Dr. Cruz, and thank you, Jeanette.
One thing I did forget to mention is that with the Texas Department of Emergency Management, Dr. Lazar, who works for them or with them, has given a standing order for the entire state of Texas. So if anyone does present with symptoms and they happen to not be someone who is enrolled in our virtual Care for Kids telehealth program, then they are still able to get the test under that standing order. But if the
Awesome.
child is enrolled and they do have any of the symptoms, then we are able to go ahead and proceed with a telehealth visit. And at that point, we can test for COVID, we can test for flu, we can test for strep as well. So, but just on the lines of COVID, even if they're not enrolled, we are still able to provide that test to them.
Great.
Is that being done, the testing being done there locally at the school, or is there a designated area that they would have to go to get tested?
Each nurse will be trained in administering the test, and so it will be done at the actual campus in our isolation rooms. Because if someone is symptomatic on campus, they're immediately sent to the isolation room on campus, and so we would perform the test in that location.
Okay.
Does anyone else have any additional questions?
The guidelines on the return to school plan, are those available online, or where can people find those?
Yes, ma'am. If you go to the website at the very top where it says departments and all that kind of stuff, there's one that says return to school plan or return to school. And if you click on that link, it'll take you to Dr. Carmen's reopening progression. It will also take you to our return to school plan.
And will this new plan, will it be advertised also for parents to be aware of this? Or how,
Yes, ma'am.
what y'all plan on doing for the community to be aware of this program?
We will notify once we have everyone trained, and once it is board approved, then we will notify our parents that they can, that their child can be tested. I also manage our health services Facebook, and so I do a lot of posting there as far as what we're doing, what's available, and so we'd also be notifying people through social media as well.
Thank you.
Yes,
I'm
ma'am.
excited
Thank you.
about this program for our students and staff.
Yes, ma'am.
It sounds really good. Thank you, Jeanette.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms.
Thank you, Ms.
Rodriguez.
Weaver.
Let me ask something. I'm sorry, I should have asked. These guidelines, are they guidelines that we can do, that the school district does, or is it some guidelines that they're doing that we have to fulfill?
You're saying in regards to the COVID testing, correct?
Exactly.
Through the
Hmm.
Texas Department of Emergency Management, they basically said, if you want to do it, you can apply, and then you can do what's best for your district. So
Understood.
everyone is kind of doing what works out best for their students and staff. And at this time, through discussion with Dr. Carmen and Dr. Cruz, this is the route that we think would serve our students and our staff best. But there is no
And you can't tell
regulation
who.
from Texas Department of Emergency Management that we're required to follow as far as the protocols.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
And when would the training begin for the nurses?
The training, we were waiting until today's meeting so we could go over everything and discuss everything. Of course, I've already completed the training, and I'm having a meeting Thursday with the nurses to discuss this. And so that way they can already they can already work on their training. And once we have it approved by the board, then they can initiate testing the following day on December 9th.
Great. Let's get it started then. Sounds
Yes,
great.
ma'am.
Yes.
Absolutely. Let's get it
Uh-huh.
started. Very good.
Okay. All right.
We'll have to
Thank
put it in the
you.
agenda.
Thank you all
Agenda.
so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Ms.
Ms.
Rodriguez.
Rodriguez.
Keep up the great work.
Thank you,
Yes.
ma'am.
So we place on agenda for the next regular board meeting.
Agenda item.
On number 3, we have the committee concerns. Does anybody have any questions, any concerns?
Well, I do have some concerns, but it's something that was brought up to me this past week, that some of the board members have been making visits at campuses and departments, and they're feeling a little bit kind of pressured, kind of with all the questions that they're being asked. And I know that we have, by Dr. Carmen has told us that every time we're gonna go visit a campus, I don't know if you've been aware or not, that you need to let Dr. Carmen, we need to let Dr. Carmen know that we're gonna go make visits at the campuses and everything. So this is just some, I got several phone calls, and I wasn't the only one. I know that some of the other board members were also, told about it. They were called. But me being an educator, and some of you were also educators, the feeling that it is when you see somebody, especially a board member at your campus, right away you start feeling kind of scared, threatened, or just uncomfortable, because I'll say, well, what are they up to? What do they want? What are they gonna ask for? It so it would be best, and you can tell the campuses that I only go when we're invited, mainly just for invitation. I really never had, I've been there, this is my 3rd year, going on my 3rd year, and I go only when invited. And like they're gonna have some special programs, or little things that they want us to go, I go by invitation. But and of course we can go, but like Dr. Carmen has told us that for us to let him know where we're gonna be, and our reason why we're gonna go making visits. And that's what we respect all our employees. They're doing an awesome job. And like Mr. Ramiro said at the beginning, that we're not here to micromanage, which is exactly how it is. We're not here to micromanage, and we want to be able to let the have the employees feel comfortable doing their job. And that's the important thing, just having them do their job, and that's all.
And
Move
it's bad
on.
enough. It's bad enough that they're under a lot of pressure right now with this COVID. We need to give those teachers a little break. My gosh, they're under so much pressure. I feel for them. I'm glad I'm not teaching, but I can imagine what's going
So are
on.
we.
Yes. Yeah, and we have to be careful with the COVID, like Miss Janie De Silva said, especially right now, we don't want to get anybody, infected or us, or them. So we need to, especially right now with all of this, it would be best that we, only when, we're invited or when there's a necessity to go, let's, go and visit. But it's all good, we all have, can visit, but we have our protocols with everything. Thank you.
I'd like to, if I may, thank you, Ms. Weaver, for your comment. And I just want to piggyback on that because I did say that we're not here to micromanage.
Yes.
I, for one, have not been around the different campuses yet. I worked here before, so I'm familiar with most of the campuses. My grandson goes to one of the campuses. However, I'd like Dr. Carmen to also chime in. When we had our orientation, it was encouraged that we make visits. And yes, of course, that we need to let Dr. Carmen know out of courtesy. That's a courtesy.
Exactly.
But
yes.
by the same token, I can see where some employees might feel intimidated because it happens. It happens, So even I, as a principal, here comes my superintendent. Not that he intimidates me, but it's a feeling like I better be on my best, or I better be doing what I'm supposed to be doing.
Exactly.
But on the flip side, the community voted us in, and I feel that this is a phenomenal opportunity with Dr. Carmen's knowledge of us being at these different places. It's a phenomenal opportunity for board members, especially new board members, and even you all, to go out there and introduce yourselves and know that you're here to represent them. Because we're not self-sufficient individuals. We're here to represent them. We want to know what their concerns are. And I would hope that I would be able to have a conversation on a good side, not necessarily drill them with questions, but have an honest conversation as to what exciting things are happening in our district, because there are a lot of exciting things happening in our district. So, it's unfortunate that there may be a few that feel intimidated or may feel, I haven't been part of any of those visits, but that's my take on it. I would like for although I know many district employees, I would want them to feel confident in coming to talk to me or coming to talk to any one of us with concerns, or even just to share the good things that are happening in our district.
That's great.
All right,
Yes,
so Mr. Moreno,
exactly.
since you brought up our district orientation, yes, sir. I will add on to what Mrs. Weaver said. In addition to notifying my office, each board member should notify the principal or director of the department they're going to go visit. So that individual who's in charge of that campus or department is responsible then for arranging the visit for the board member, making sure they get to see what they would like to see. I think it's also important that our board members simply remember that when they make these visits, that just as you all have learned and you all know, when you're an individual board member, you don't have the authority of the board. You're there as an individual. And so if the conversations are open, you want to know what's going on, that's great. I think some of the topics that have been broached during some visits are probably what prompted calls to other board members. But I think as you all learn to become seasoned board members, if you just recall that as an individual board member, you're not acting on behalf of the board. You're there to see the programs, you're there to see the buildings. You want to look and see, what's happening inside those four walls. You're all available to do so, but the board approved procedures include not just notifying me, but the individual principal or director. And I think as long as those protocols are followed, then our campuses and our departments remain open for you all to visit.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Carmen.
And again, just to add on to what Ramiro said, and Dr. Carmen, thank you for that clarification. When we had our training, you did say that we could visit the campuses and departments. And unfortunately, the phone that we contacted you in, you didn't have it with you. And so now we know to use the other phone number as well. And and we'll get clarification on that from you, so that way I can get your cell number as well. And I wanted to add, there's no reason why any employee should be intimidated. We're here to help. We were voted in by the community because we're here to help. We're not here to intimidate anyone. We're not here to
Good.
cause anybody problems. We're just here to keep making the district better and better every year, because there's always room for improvement. And so we're here to make sure that our operations are running effectively when it comes to policies and procedures that we have in the school district. And anybody that feels comfortable talking to us may feel comfortable talking to us, but we're not here to intimidate anybody.
Great. Thank you. That's exactly what we need to hear. Thank you so much.
Are there any other comments or concerns?
I would like to make one more, and it's a concern, but it's just a comment that I'd like to make. And if anybody wants to chime in, I don't have a problem with it as well. But be that as it may, since we're talking about, we made a reference to our orientation that we had before. I would assume, and I would assume that all our board members are aware of the board operating policies and procedures. And with that said, Dr. Carmen, you were very adamant, and you were very clear in reference to one of the first things mentioned in our board policies and operating procedures, in reference to personally making disparaging remarks against other board members. And I agree. We need to put all differences aside. And as hard as that may be in some cases, and it's very hard in some cases, I'm going to be honest, because some ties have been broken. However, with that said, I do think that this is public information, and based on comments being placed on social media, not only by administrators but also by our current board members, that there's copies out there going out on social media. There's snapshots of comments being made that are inappropriate, and I know that it's not like any one of us board members is trying to get another one out. And like you mentioned, if I recall, and I don't want to quote you, but you said some of these things that we infringe upon may result in a slap in the hand. But when you put things, and I tell my teachers that whatever you put on Facebook, it's there forever. It's there forever. And when I see comments from our administrators in San Benito CISD and board members from SBCISD that are basically disparaging other board members, I don't appreciate that. And I don't know, again, maybe it can be a slap on the hand, but I hope that in the future that we can work together and we can get along, because we're here to work for our kids, our teachers, our staff, and the community.
Very well done. Very well said. Thank you, sir.
Is there any further business to discuss? Thank you, Mr. Moreno. Since there is no further business, this meeting is now adjourned. The time is 6:16.